Captain Lee Jawan stared at the readings on her screen for the third time. The numbers made no sense. Her ship, the Harmony's Edge, had been scanning empty space for weeks, but the sensors kept picking up something that should not exist. You sure these readings are correct? She asked Dr. Kim Hyok, who was hunched over his workstation nearby. Kim looked up from his screens. His face was tired from days of checking and rechecking data. I have run the tests 15 times, Captain. There is definitely something out there, something big. Lee walked to the main viewing window. Outside, she saw nothing but black space and distant stars. They were at the edge of known space, far from any planets or trade routes. This was supposed to be empty territory. Engineer Park. Sola, what do your scans show? Lee called to the young woman working at the engineering station. The energy readings are off the charts, Captain, Sola replied. Whatever is out there, it is huge. Much bigger than our ship. Maybe bigger than anything we have ever built. Lee felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had been exploring space for over 200 years. They had found dead planets, empty moons, and lots of space rocks, but they had never found anything built by someone else. The idea that aliens might exist was just a theory in science books. Set course for the energy source, Lee ordered. But keep our shields up and weapons ready. The Harmony's Edge moved slowly through space toward the mysterious readings. It took 6 hours to reach the location. When they arrived, the crew gathered on the bridge to see what they had found. Dear God, whispered Communications Officer Yu Minho. Floating in space before them was a massive ship. It was at least 10 times the size of their vessel. The hull was dark and covered in strange markings. Parts of it looked melted or torn, as if it had been in a terrible battle. It looks dead, said Kim. No power readings, no life signs. But the energy signature? Lee asked. Coming from inside, Sola explained. Some kind of backup power source, very weak, but still running after who knows how long. Lee studied the alien vessel. It was clearly not human. The design was completely different from anything Earth had ever built. The hull curved in impossible ways, and there were weapon ports that could fit their entire ship inside. Captain, I am picking up something else, Minho said from his station. This ship has been broadcasting a signal, very faint, very old. It is some kind of distress call. Can you understand it? Lee asked. The computer is trying to decode it now, Minho replied. Wait, I think I have something. The signal is not just a distress call. It contains data. Lots of data. On the main screen, symbols appeared that no human had ever seen before. The computer worked to translate them using mathematical patterns and universal constants. Captain, Kim said in a shocked voice, these are star charts, maps of the entire galaxy, but look at this. He pointed to the screen where hundreds of small symbols marked different star systems. Each symbol was different, suggesting different types of worlds or civilizations. There are others, Lee whispered. Hundreds of them. Not just others, Sola said, reading more of the translated data. Look at these symbols here. They represent different species, different types of aliens. And they are all marked as isolated. Isolated how? Lee asked. Kim worked at his station, decoding more of the alien data. According to this, there is something called the hegemony. It appears to be a government that controls most of the galaxy, and it keeps all the different species separated from each other. Why would they do that? Minho asked. Control, Lee said grimly. If you keep everyone apart, they cannot work together against you. More data appeared on the screen. The ship's computer had broken through another layer of the alien code. What they saw made the entire crew fall silent. The data showed the history of the ship they had found. It belonged to something called the Free Coalition, a group of different alien species that had tried to work together. They had fought against the hegemony for their freedom, but the coalition had lost. The data showed battle after battle, with coalition ships being destroyed by hegemony forces. The ship they were exploring was one of the last survivors. Its crew had died trying to escape to the edge of the galaxy. Captain, Sola said quietly, there is more. The data contains information about Earth, about us. Lee felt her blood turn cold. What kind of information? Our location, our technology level, our population, Sola paused, and a warning. The data says that the hegemony finds and destroys any species that might become a threat. Are we a threat? Minho asked. Kim was studying more of the alien data. According to their calculations, yes. We have developed space travel too quickly. We have too many weapons. We ask too many questions. Lee realized the terrible truth. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, but being alone might have been safer. Captain, Minho called out suddenly, I am detecting ships approaching our position. 3 vessels moving fast. Human ships? Lee asked hopefully. No, Captain. The energy signatures match the data we found. These are hegemony ships. Lee looked at the dead alien vessel floating beside them. Its crew had died trying to bring warning to others. Now that warning had found its way to humanity. All hands to battle stations, she ordered. Prepare to run. We need to get this information. Back to Earth. As alarms sounded throughout the ship, Lee realized that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but their new neighbors were not interested in friendship. The galaxy was much more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And somewhere out there, a powerful enemy was coming to silence them forever. The race to save humanity had just begun. The Harmony's edge shook as enemy weapons fired past them. Captain Lee Ji-won gripped her chair as her ship raced through space, running from the 3 hegemony vessels that had found them at the alien wreck. How long until we reach the jump point? She called to Engineer Park Sola. 2 minutes, Captain, Sola replied, her hands flying over the controls. But they are gaining on us. Can we make the jump before they catch us? Lee asked. Maybe, Sola said. But it will be close. Behind them, the alien ships fired again. Their weapons were more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. Beams of pure energy cut through space, where the Harmony's edge had been just seconds before. 30 seconds to jump, Sola announced. Lee watched the countdown on her screen. Everything depended on getting this information back to Earth. The galaxy was full of alien species, all kept apart by a powerful enemy called the hegemony. And that enemy was coming for humanity next. Jump! Sola shouted. Space twisted around them as the ship entered hyperspace. The enemy vessels disappeared, left far behind in normal space. They had escaped, but Lee knew it would not be long before. The hegemony came looking for Earth. 3 days later, the Harmony's Edge arrived at Luna Command, the main military base orbiting Earth's moon. Lee had sent her report ahead, and the entire command structure was waiting for her. Admiral Cho Dong-soo met her at the docking bay. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. Behind him stood several other important people from Earth's government and military. Captain Lee, Admiral Cho said, we have read your report. Are you certain about what you found? Yes, sir, Lee replied. We have all the data from the alien ship. Dr. Kim has been studying it during our trip home. The evidence is clear. They walked to a large meeting room where the top leaders of Earth were waiting. Lee had never seen so many important people in one place. The president of Earth sat at the head of a long table, with military commanders and scientists on both sides. Show them what we found, Lee said to Dr. Kim. Kim activated a large screen that showed the alien star charts. Hundreds of symbols marked different worlds and species throughout the galaxy. This is what the galaxy really looks like, Kim explained. There are hundreds of intelligent species out there, but they are all kept separate by something called the hegemony. General Lim Jun-ho, head of Earth's armies, leaned forward. What kind of enemy are we facing? A very powerful one, Kim replied. The hegemony has controlled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They find new species and either make them slaves or destroy them completely. Dr. Shin Nari, Earth's top expert on alien life, studied the data carefully. "This is incredible," she said. "All these different forms of life, and we never knew they existed." "Because that is how the hegemony wants it," Lee said. "They keep everyone apart so no one can fight back together." "What happened to the species that tried to fight?" President Chen asked. Kim changed the display to show battle records from the alien ship. "They were all destroyed. The Free Coalition was the last group to try to resist. The ship we found was one of their final survivors." The room fell silent, as everyone absorbed this information. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were not alone, but they might wish they were. "How long do we have?" Admiral Cho asked. "Not long," Lee replied. "The ships that chased us will report back to their commanders. The hegemony will know we found their secret." General Lim stood up. "Then we need to strike first. We have been building new weapons, new ships. If we hit them before they are ready—" "With what?" Dr. Nari interrupted. "You saw their technology. Their ships are far more advanced than ours." "But they are not expecting a fight," Lim argued. "They think we are just another weak species they can easily defeat." Admiral Cho walked to a window that looked out at Earth below. "There is something you all need to know," he said. "We have been building something. Project Worldbreaker." He activated another screen that showed a massive spaceship under construction in the asteroid belt. It was unlike anything humanity had ever built before. The ship was enormous, covered in weapon systems and armor plating. "This is our first Titan-class battleship," Admiral Cho explained. "We designed it to fight wars between star systems. We never thought we would need it this soon." Engineer Park Sola studied the ship's design. "It is impressive," she said, "but will it be enough against an entire galactic empire?" "It will have to be," Lim said firmly. "We cannot run forever, and we cannot hide." Dr. Nari looked troubled. "Maybe we should try to talk to them first. Send a message of peace. The data from the alien ship shows what happens to species that try to surrender," Kim said quietly. "They become slaves. Their worlds are taken over. Their children are raised to serve the hegemony." "Then we fight," President Chen said. "But how do we fight an empire that spans the entire galaxy?" Lee had been thinking about this during the trip home. "We do what they do not expect. We unite the other species." "How?" Admiral Cho asked. "They are all kept separate." "The alien ship had data on all of them," Lee explained. "Their locations, their technology levels, their weaknesses, but also their strengths. If we can contact them, tell them the truth. About the galaxy." "They might join us," Dr. Nari finished. "A new coalition." "It is a huge risk," General Lim said. "We would be revealing ourselves to dozens of alien species. Any one of them could betray us to the hegemony." "Some might," Lee agreed. "But others might be willing to fight for their freedom." Admiral Cho considered this. "We would need to complete the Worldbreaker first. Give ourselves a chance in battle." Communications Officer Yu Minho, who had been quiet during the meeting, suddenly spoke up. "Admiral, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting ships at the edge of our solar system." Everyone turned to look at him. "What kind of ships?" Admiral Cho asked. "Unknown design, but very large," Minho replied. 15 vessels moving toward Earth." Lee felt her heart sink. "They found us faster than we thought." Admiral Cho activated the emergency communication system. "All defense forces to battle stations. This is not a drill." Alarms began sounding throughout Luna Command and across the solar system. Earth's small fleet of warships moved to defensive positions, but everyone knew they were no match for what was coming. "How long until the Worldbreaker is ready for combat?" President Chen asked. 3 days minimum," Admiral Cho replied. "We do not have 3 days," Lee said. watching the tactical display. "Those ships will be here in 6 hours." General Lim stood up straight. "Then we make our stand with what we have." Dr. Nari looked at the approaching enemy fleet. "Maybe they are coming to talk." Lee remembered the data from the alien ship, the records of worlds burned from orbit and species wiped from existence. "No," she said quietly. "They are coming to end us." Outside the windows of Luna Command, Earth spun peacefully in space, unaware that its first contact with alien life was about to begin, and it would not be the peaceful meeting that humanity had always dreamed of. The enemy was at the gates, and the war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The Worldbreaker hung in space like a metal mountain. Captain Nam Jiho had never seen anything so beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The massive battleship was barely finished, with construction crews still working on the final weapon systems. "All crew aboard, Captain," reported Commander Oh Sung-min from the bridge. "Engineering teams are doing final checks on the main guns." Jiho nodded, watching the tactical display that showed enemy ships moving through the outer solar system. 15 hegemony vessels, each one larger than Earth's biggest warships. They had ignored all attempts at communication and were heading straight for Earth. "Any word from the defense fleet?" Jiho asked. "Admiral Cho is positioning our ships near Mars," Lieutenant Colonel Bei Yuna replied from her station. "But he wants us to stay hidden until the enemy gets closer." Jiho understood the plan. Earth's normal warships would engage the enemy first, making them think humanity was weak. Then the Worldbreaker would strike when the aliens were not expecting. IT engineer Park Sola worked frantically at her station, connecting the last of the weapon systems. "Captain, the quantum torpedoes are online, but I am not sure how they will work in real combat." "We are about to find out," Jiho said grimly. On the screen, they watched as Earth's defense fleet moved to intercept the enemy. 12 human ships against 15 alien vessels. It should have been a hopeless fight. The battle began near Jupiter's moons. Human ships fired missiles and energy beams at the approaching aliens. For a moment, it looked like Earth's weapons might work. Then the enemy fired back. Alien energy beams cut through human ships like knives through paper. Shields that should have protected Earth's vessels collapsed in seconds. Within minutes, 3 human ships were destroyed. "They are too strong," whispered Strategic Officer Kang Min-jae. "Our weapons barely scratch their hulls." But Jiho noticed something in the enemy movement patterns. "Look at how they fight," he said. "They move in perfect formation. Too perfect." Dr. Kim Hyok, now serving as the ship's alien technology expert, studied the enemy tactics. "They are used to fighting weak opponents, species that have no real military experience." "But we have been preparing for war our entire history," Jiho realized. "They do not know what they are facing." The human defense fleet retreated, drawing the enemy deeper into the solar system. More human ships were destroyed, but they had learned something important. The alien weapons were powerful, but their ships moved predictably. "Bring us around behind that asteroid field," Jiho ordered. "When they pass us, we hit them from the side." The Worldbreaker moved through space like a silent giant. The ship was so large that it took several minutes just to change direction. But when it moved into position, every crew member felt ready for the fight of their lives. "Enemy fleet approaching," reported Communications Officer Yu Minho. "They are moving past our position now." "Wait," Jiho said. "Let them get closer." The alien ships passed the asteroid field where the Worldbreaker was hiding. They were focused on chasing the human defense fleet and did not see the massive battleship waiting for them. "Now," Jiho ordered, "all weapons, fire!" The Worldbreaker revealed itself in a storm of destruction. Quantum torpedoes launched from dozens of tubes, phasing through space to strike the enemy ships' hulls directly. Kinetic cannons fired asteroids at tremendous speed, turning space rocks into planet-killing weapons. The first alien ship to be hit simply disappeared. The quantum torpedo struck its power core and the entire vessel vanished in a flash of light. The second ship tried to turn away, but a kinetic round punched through its hull and tore it apart. "Direct hits!" Sola called out. "Their shields cannot stop our quantum weapons," but the enemy was not helpless. The remaining alien ships turned to face this new threat, their own weapons charging for battle. "Incoming fire!" Minjay warned. Alien energy beams struck the Worldbreaker's armor, causing the entire ship to shake. The weapons were incredibly powerful, but the battleship's thick armor held. "Damage report," Jiho called. "Armor plating damaged but holding," Sola replied. "Hull breach on deck 7, but we can handle it." The battle became a deadly dance in space. The alien ships were faster and more maneuverable, but the Worldbreaker was tougher and had more firepower. Human and alien weapons lit up the darkness. "Between the worlds!" "Captain!" Kim called out suddenly. "I have been studying their communication patterns. Their ships talk to each other through quantum links." "So?" Jiho asked while dodging another alien attack. "So if we can disrupt those links, we can break their coordination," Kim explained. "I can build a quantum disruptor using parts from the alien wreck we found." "Do it," Jiho ordered. "How long do you need?" 10 minutes, Kim replied, already running toward the engineering section. The Worldbreaker continued fighting, trading shots with the alien fleet. 2 more enemy ships were destroyed, but the battleship was taking heavy damage. Fires burned on multiple decks, and several weapon systems were offline. "Another ship down," Bay reported. "But we are losing weapons fast." "Quantum disruptor ready," Kim announced over the ship's communication system. "Activate it," Jiho ordered. A strange pulse spread out from the Worldbreaker, invisible but powerful. When it reached the alien ships, something changed. The enemy vessels suddenly stopped moving in formation. They began bumping into each other and firing in random directions. "It worked!" Minjay shouted. "They cannot coordinate anymore." Without their ability to work together, the alien ships became easy targets. The Worldbreaker and the surviving human defense ships picked them off, one by one. Within an hour, the entire enemy fleet was destroyed. "All enemy ships eliminated," Sungmin reported. "No survivors detected." Jiho looked at the wreckage floating in space around them. 15 alien warships, reduced to scrap metal and debris. Not one had escaped to report back to their commanders. "We won," Bay said in amazement. "We actually won!" But Jiho felt no celebration. He knew this was just the beginning. "This was just a scouting force," he said. "When they do not report back, the hegemony will send more ships. Many more." Dr. Kim returned to the bridge, looking exhausted but satisfied. "The quantum disruptor worked better than I hoped. We can build more of them." "Good," Jiho said. "We are going to need every advantage we can get." Sola was studying damage reports from throughout the ship. "Captain, we took heavy damage. The ship needs major repairs before we can fight again." "How long?" Jiho asked. "At least a month," Sola replied. "Maybe more." Jiho looked out at the wreckage of the alien fleet. Humanity had won its first battle against the hegemony, but at a terrible cost. Earth's defense fleet was nearly destroyed, and their most powerful ship was badly damaged. Worse, they had revealed their capabilities to the enemy. The next time the hegemony came, they would be ready for human weapons and tactics. "Send a message to Earth," Jiho ordered. "Tell them we need to prepare for war. Real war. This was just the beginning." As the Worldbreaker limped back toward Earth for repairs, everyone on board knew that their lives had changed forever. Humanity was no longer a peaceful species exploring the galaxy. They were warriors now, fighting for survival against an enemy that controlled the stars. The age of innocence was over. The age of war had begun. High Counselor Vexithara stood before the Great Assembly on Dominion Prime, the capital world of the hegemony. Her bird-like features showed no emotion, but inside she felt something she had not experienced in centuries: fear. "The subjugation fleet has been destroyed," she announced to the gathered representatives of 12 different species. "All 15 ships. No survivors." A wave of shocked sounds filled the massive chamber. The insect-like draconic caste clicked, their mandibles nervously. The floating gas beings of the eternal choir hummed in distress. In over 1,000 years, no subjugation fleet had ever been completely destroyed. "How is this possible?" demanded War Marshal Drexkalar, his reptilian eyes glowing with anger. "What kind of primitive species could defeat our most advanced ships?" "We do not know," Vexathara admitted. The fleet was investigating a disturbance at the galaxy's edge. They found something there and transmitted a brief report about discovering a new species. Then nothing. Intelligence Arbiter Kithara, a crystalline being whose body sparkled with inner light, spoke carefully. "Perhaps we should investigate before sending more ships. If this unknown species destroyed an entire fleet, they may be more dangerous than we thought." "Dangerous?" Drexkalar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "No single world can stand against the might of the hegemony. I will take a full battle fleet and reduce their planet to ash." But Vexthara had read the last transmission from the destroyed fleet. They had mentioned finding data, old records from the Free Coalition. If this new species had learned the truth about the galaxy, everything could change. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, humanity was preparing for the war they knew was coming. Admiral Cho Dong-su stood in the command center on Luna, watching construction reports from shipyards throughout the solar system. Since the battle, every factory on Earth had been converted to building weapons and ships. "How many new vessels will we have ready?" he asked Captain Lee Ji-won, who had been promoted to head the new intelligence division. 12 corvettes and 4 destroyers within 6 months, Lee replied. "But they will not be enough if the hegemony sends a real invasion force." "Then we need allies," Admiral Cho said. "Has Dr. Nari made progress with the contact plan?" Lee nodded toward another part of the command center where Dr. Shin Nari was working with a team of linguists and xenobiologists. They were preparing first contact packages for dozens of alien species identified in the data from the Free Coalition ship. "We have identified 23 species that might be willing to rebel against the hegemony," Dr. Nari reported when she joined them. "But contacting them will be incredibly dangerous." "Why?" Admiral Cho asked. "Because we have to reach them without the hegemony knowing," Lee explained. "If even one species betrays us to their overlords, the hegemony will know what we are doing." Dr. Nari activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked hegemony strongholds, while blue dots showed potential allies. "We have built new stealth ships based on technology recovered from the alien wreck, small, fast vessels that can avoid hegemony sensors." "Who will command these missions?" Admiral Cho asked. "I will," Lee said firmly. "This was my discovery. I should be the one to follow it through." 3 weeks later, Lee's task force of 5 stealth ships left the solar system. Her team included cultural analyst Song Tae-hyun and diplomatic officer Han Sera, both experts in alien psychology and communication. Their first destination was Narration 7, an ocean world inhabited by the aquatic tidal Nari. According to the Free Coalition data, these beings had been under hegemony rule for 600 years. "Approaching the target system," reported the ship's pilot as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Narion's solar system. Lee studied the tactical display. The ocean world was surrounded by hegemony monitoring stations, but they seemed focused on watching for ships leaving the planet, not arriving. "Take us in slowly," Lee ordered. "Use the stealth systems." The human ship slipped past the hegemony defenses and entered Narion's atmosphere. Below them, vast oceans covered the entire planet. Cities floated on the surface or hung suspended underwater, connected by streams of bubbles and flowing currents. "How do we make contact?" Sarah asked. "We cannot exactly knock on their door." Song had been studying tidal Nari culture during the trip. "According to the data, they communicate through sonic pulses in the water. I can modify our transmitters to send a message." They sent a simple mathematical sequence, something that would prove intelligence without seeming threatening. Within hours, they received a response. The tidal Nari were curious about these strange visitors from the sky. The first meeting took place in a floating city near the planet's equator. Lee and her team wore special breathing apparatus that allowed them to survive in the tidal Nari's water-filled environment. The aliens were beautiful in their own way, with flowing bodies that seemed to dance through the water. Their leader, an ancient being named choral singer Nethara, greeted the humans with cautious interest. "You are not of the hegemony," Nethara observed, her voice creating musical tones in the water. "We have never seen beings like you. We come from a world called Earth," Lee explained through the translation device. "We have learned the truth about the galaxy." "What truth?" Nethara asked. Lee activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy map from the Free Coalition data. "You are not alone. There are hundreds of other species out there. The hegemony has kept you all separated so you cannot work together." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Nethara's body color changed from calm blue to shocked red. Other tidal Nari in the chamber began making distressed sounds. "This cannot be true," Nethara whispered. "The hegemony told us we were the only intelligent life besides themselves." "They lied," Song said gently. "They lie to everyone." Over the next several hours, Lee's team shared everything they had learned. They showed the tidal Nari evidence of other species, records of the Free Coalition, and proof of the hegemony's deception. The reaction was explosive. Within days, the entire tidal Nari civilization was in revolt. They attacked hegemony installations, freed enslaved populations, and began reaching out to neighboring systems. "We will not be slaves anymore," Nethara declared. "We will fight for our freedom and the freedom of all oppressed peoples." But the tidal Nari rebellion did not go unnoticed. War Marshal Drexkalar responded with overwhelming force, sending battle fleets to crush the uprising. Lee watched in horror from orbit as hegemony ships began bombarding tidal Nari cities. Millions of innocent aliens were dying because humanity had given them hope. "We have to help them," Sarah said, tears in her eyes. "With what?" Lee replied bitterly. "We have 5 small ships against a battle fleet." But the tidal Nari's sacrifice was not in vain. Word of their rebellion spread to other worlds through secret communication networks that the hegemony did not know existed. Soon, uprisings began on dozens of planets. The crystalline resonance entities of the Magellanic Drift used their ability to manipulate energy to sabotage hegemony power plants. The insectoid hive minds of Kepler Sigma coordinated massive strikes against military installations. The plasma-based Luminous Collective began intercepting hegemony supply convoys. Each rebellion was crushed, but not before spreading the message further. The galaxy was waking up to the truth, and the hegemony was struggling to maintain control. "This is chaos," Vexathera reported to the High Council. 17 worlds are in open rebellion. Our forces are spread too thin to contain them all. Then, "We make an example," Drexkalar snarled. "Pick one rebellious world and destroy it completely. Burn it from orbit until nothing remains. The others will surrender when they see what happens to those who defy us." "And if they do not surrender?" Kithara asked. "Then we burn them all," Drexkalar replied. "Better to rule ashes than to lose control." Back on Earth, Admiral Cho received reports of the spreading rebellion with mixed feelings. Humanity's plan was working, but the cost was terrible. Entire civilizations were being destroyed in the fighting. "We started this," he said to Lee when she returned from her mission. "Now we have to finish it." "How?" Lee asked. "The hegemony has thousands of ships. Even if every rebel world joins us, we are still outnumbered." "Then we make sure we are not fighting them alone," Admiral Cho replied. "It is time to reveal our secret weapon." He led Lee to a classified section of Luna Command, where engineers were working on something that would change the course of the war. It was not a ship or a weapon, but something much more powerful. It was a way to unite the galaxy. The rebuilt Worldbreaker led a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from dozens of different species flew together toward the hegemony's core system. Tidal Nari vessels that moved like living creatures through space. Crystalline resonance entity ships that sparkled with inner light. Insectoid hive mind cruisers that looked like flying cities. Admiral Nam Jiho stood on the bridge of the great battleship, watching the combined fleet on his tactical display. 3 months ago, these species had been enemies or strangers. Now, they were united in a single cause: freedom. Fleet status report, he called to Fleet Coordinator Yu Minho, who was managing communications between hundreds of ships with completely different technologies. All vessels report ready for battle, Minho replied, though the strain showed on his face. Translating between dozens of alien languages while coordinating a military operation was almost impossible. The luminous collective ships are having trouble with our formation patterns, but they are adapting. Engineer Park Sola looked up from her station where she was monitoring the ship's new hybrid weapons systems. The integrated technology is working better than expected. Combining human kinetic weapons with resonance entity energy manipulation has created something completely new. Dr. Kim Hyok, now the fleet's chief technology officer, nodded in agreement. Each species brought their best innovations. Together, we have capabilities that none of us could achieve alone. Ahead of them lay Dominion Prime, the capital world of the hegemony. It was protected by the largest space fortress ever built, called the Eternal Throne. The massive structure could house 1 million beings and had weapons powerful enough to destroy moons. "Enemy fleet detected," reported Strategic Officer Kang Min-jae. 200 hegemony ships moving to intercept us. They are taking defensive positions around the fortress. Jiho studied the enemy formation. The hegemony had gathered ships from across the galaxy to make their final stand. He could see vessels from every species that served their empire, forced to fight against their own freedom. "Open a channel to the entire fleet," Jiho ordered. When the communication link was established, Jiho spoke to the combined forces of the Galactic Rebellion. "Today, we fight not just for our own worlds, but for every species that has suffered under hegemony rule. Today, we end 1,000 years of oppression." The response came in dozens of different languages, but the meaning was the same in all of them: unity, determination, and hope. The battle began when the hegemony fleet opened fire at maximum range. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the fleets. But the Rebel Alliance had learned from every previous battle. They did not fight like the old Free Coalition, trying to match the enemy's tactics. Instead, they fought like themselves. The tidal Nari ships flowed around enemy formations like water, striking weak points and retreating before the hegemony could respond. The resonance entities focused their energy manipulation abilities to overload enemy shields. The hive minds coordinated swarm attacks that confused and overwhelmed individual targets, and the humans provided the backbone of heavy firepower and tactical coordination that held the entire alliance together. Direct hit on enemy cruiser 7, Sola reported as one of the Worldbreaker's quantum torpedoes found its target. "Their shields are down." "Tidal Nari Squadron, finish that target," Minho called over the communication system. The aquatic aliens' ships swarmed over the damaged hegemony vessel, their weapons tearing it apart with precise strikes. But the enemy was not helpless. High Counselor Vex Thara commanded the hegemony fleet from aboard the Eternal Throne, and she had learned from the rebels' previous victories. "All ships, focus fire on the human battleship," she ordered. "Destroy their flagship and the Alliance will collapse." Dozens of enemy vessels turned their weapons on the Worldbreaker. The great ship's shields flared under the massive bombardment, and explosions echoed through its corridors. "Shield generators failing," Sola called out as sparks flew from her console. "We cannot take much more of this." "Evasive maneuvers," Jiho ordered, but the world breaker was too large to dodge effectively. Then something unexpected happened. The other ships of the Alliance moved to protect the human flagship. Crystalline vessels positioned themselves to absorb energy attacks. Luminous collective ships created interference fields that disrupted enemy targeting. Even the smallest rebel fighters threw themselves between the worldbreaker and its attackers. "They are protecting us," Minji said in amazement. "We protected them first," Jiho replied. "Now they return the favor." The battle raged for hours around Dominion Prime. Ships on both sides were destroyed, filling space with wreckage and debris. But slowly, the Alliance began to gain the upper hand. Dr. Kim had discovered something crucial during the fighting. "Admiral, I have been analyzing hegemony communication patterns. Their ruling species is not native to this galaxy." "What do you mean?" Jiho asked while directing the ship's weapons at an enemy dreadnought. "The core leadership, the ones giving orders from the Eternal Throne," Kim explained. "Their technology and biological signatures do not match anything else in the galaxy. They are refugees from somewhere else." This revelation changed everything. Captain Lee Ji-won, now serving as the Alliance's chief diplomat, immediately broadcast this information to every ship in both fleets. "The hegemony's rulers are not gods," she announced. "They are not superior beings with the right to control others. They are refugees who chose to become oppressors instead of seeking help." The effect on the hegemony fleet was immediate. Many ships stopped fighting as their crews realized they had been serving aliens who had no more right to rule than anyone else. Some vessels switched sides entirely, turning their weapons on their former masters. "Fleet-wide rebellion in the enemy ranks," Minje reported. "Over half their ships have stopped fighting." War Marshal Drexkalar's voice came over the communication channels, filled with rage. "Traitors! You will all burn for this betrayal!" But it was too late. The hegemony's greatest weapon had always been the belief that they were superior to other species. Once that belief was shattered, their empire began to crumble. The final battle took place around the Eternal Throne itself. The massive fortress was incredibly powerful, but it was designed to fight external enemies, not internal rebellion. When its own defense fleet turned against it, even the mighty fortress could not survive. High Counselor Vex Thara found herself trapped aboard a dying station as rebel ships poured through its defenses. In her final transmission, she spoke not with anger, but with something like respect. "You have done what we thought impossible," she said to the Alliance fleet. "You have united the galaxy against us. Perhaps it is time for our rule to end." The Eternal Throne exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. With it died the last symbol of hegemony power. But Admiral Jiho took no joy in the victory. Too many beings had died on both sides of this war. "Open a channel to all remaining hegemony forces," he ordered. When the connection was established, he spoke with the voice of the entire Alliance. "The war is over. We offer amnesty to all who lay down their weapons. Those who committed crimes against other species will face trial, but we will not seek revenge." Captain Lee took over the communication. "We are not here to replace one empire with another. We are here to build something new, a galaxy where every species has a voice and none can dominate the others." One by one, the remaining hegemony ships surrendered. The 1,000-year empire was finally at an end. 10 years later, President Shin Nari stood before the Galactic Confederation Assembly on New Geneva Station. The orbital habitat was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built by dozens of species, working together. "Today marks the 10th anniversary of the Liberation War," she said to representatives from over 300 worlds. "We gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals in a shared galaxy." The former Worldbreaker, now a museum ship, floated nearby as a reminder of the price of freedom. Its corridors were filled with visitors from every corner of the galaxy, all learning the story of how unity triumphed over oppression. Engineer Park Sola, now head of the Confederation's Technology Exchange Program, guided a group of young beings through the ship's weapon systems. These guns were designed to destroy, she explained, but they were used to liberate. That is the difference between tyranny and justice. Dr. Kim worked in a research station where scientists from hundreds of species collaborated on projects that would have been impossible for any one civilization alone. The knowledge they were discovering would benefit everyone. Captain Lee commanded diplomatic missions that continued to find isolated species throughout the galaxy, bringing them into the growing community of free worlds, and Admiral Jiho had retired to write the history of the war, ensuring that future generations would remember the cost of freedom and the importance of unity. The galaxy was no longer silent. Every night, signals traveled between star systems carrying messages of trade, friendship, art, and science. The barriers that had kept civilizations apart for so long were finally broken. Humanity had entered the galaxy as an unknown species from a forgotten corner of space. They left their mark not as conquerors, but as the people who reminded everyone else that they were not alone.